Start. Are you ready?
Yes.
Hello, everyone. My name is Indira.
My name is Kara.
Yeah, today we will be presenting our research proposal on how Generation Z evaluates news credibility on social networking sites. We will walk you through the key background, our research questions, and the methodological design we developed for this study. This study is important because social media is the main source of news for Gen Z. However, their trust in news is low and misinformation spreads easily. Understanding how Gen Z forms credibility judgments help us improve communication strategies and digital literacy. Generation Z is the first fully digital native generation, and social networking platforms are central part of their daily communication and identity. They usually encounter news incidentally through personalized algorithms feeds rather than actively searching for it. Because Gen Z values authenticity and transparency, their media habits make them a crucial group for understanding how credibility judgments are formed online. On social media, credibility works very differently than in traditional journalism. Instead of editors or gatekeepers, algorithms decide what users see. It means Generation Z typically encounters news inside highly personalized feeds and often relies on peripheral cues such as design, engagement, or platform norms to judge credibility quickly. This environment makes the credibility impressions less analytical and more intuitive. Next is about fact checking. Labels are one of the main tools platforms use to fight misinformation. Research shows they usually reduce credibility and make users more skeptical. However, the effects aren't always consistent. Some users ignore the warnings and other distract fact checkers altogether. Generation Z in particular may experience like warning fatigue or meaning repeated labels lose their impact. We may say that media format plays a major role in how Gen Z perceives credibility. For example, videos feel more immersive and authentic because viewers can see expressions, tone, and context. So text posts, while more analytical, often feels like less engaging. Although Gen Z clearly prefers video, we will still don't know whether these preferences makes them trust video news more or simply makes them less critical. Also we may say that time spent on social media also shaped credibility judgments. Heavily users often scroll quickly, relying on surface level cues instead of, for example, deeper evaluation. So, repeated exposure to misinformation can either make them more skeptical or desensitive them. Research shows that heavy SNS users sometimes trust peer generated content more than traditional news. This suggests that screen time may influence how Gen Z reacts to fact checking labels and different media formats. So, Kara?
So, as far as gaps in the literature, research has not identified what they have not really involved Generation Z in how they evaluate news credibility. There lacks a unified framework for fact checking labels, media types, and social networking usage. And we also need to understand Generation Z and their digital behaviors because it does affect how they acquire knowledge and how they interact in the world and perceive news. And then our research questions on the next slide. Our first one that we'll be looking at will be, how do fact-checking labels affect Gen Z's view of how credible the news is on social networking sites? Number two, does the media type, such as short-form videos versus text-based posts on the networking sites, affect Gen Z's perception of the news credibility? And then number three, how does Gen Z's time spent on social networking sites affect the perceived credibility of news? So now going more into our methodology, we'll be using a between subjects design, so 2x2. First, we'll be looking at fact-checking labels, present versus the absent, and then media type, so short-form content or like a short-form video or text-based. This combines experimental manipulation with an online survey. The fact-checking labels will either appear on a video or on a text-based post that you'll see on Instagram or Facebook. And through these things, we'll be able to look at the cause and effect relationships between fact-checking labels and also the types of media. And we'll be able to understand further how Gen Z behaves and interacts with this type of media. So now going into our participants and sampling, we will obviously be using Generation Z, so ages 18 to 26, and we would be testing this on undergraduate FSU students. We'd ideally like 50 to 80 participants, and we'd be using convenient sampling and purposive sampling methods. There'll be 4 experimental conditions with 12 to 20 people, so everyone will be split into 4 different groups. And so then for our data collection procedures, it'll be through a Qualtrics online survey. So the first they'll interact with a consent page, and then they'll answer questions about their demographics. And then they'll also additionally estimate their daily social networking service usage and also identify which platforms are you spending the most time on. And then those 4 conditions that I was talking about during the sampling is that there's going to be 4 different groups. So a short form video with a fact checking label, a short form video without a label, a text-based post with a fact checking label, and then one without a fact checking label. And then after they interact with these posts, they'll be answering questions about how they perceived the credibility of these posts. So now going into more of our methodology. So for measures, the credibility assessment will be via multi-item 7-point Likert scale. The control variables will be their prior knowledge and political interest. And then there'll also be manipulation checks. So there'll be 2 questions verifying whether they noticed the banner and whether they remember if it was a video or a text-based post. For data analysis, our variables are demographics, the social networking sites, usage patterns, and then also the credibility assessments. The Cronbach's alpha will be confirming the scale reliability, and then we'll be analyzing the data using an ANOVA, which will test the effects of fact-checking labels and media type. And also the social networking site usage duration will also help the credibility judgments predictor. And then when we look at our validity concerns, the participants will be detecting the project's purpose. So like if they understand what's going on, it may not be as valid. Also differences in attention. So Gen Z can be really hard to capture their attention. So if we're not able to capture it, that could be a concern to validity. And also convenient sampling and simplified stimuli do not match the real world social networking site research environments. And then additionally, like that self-report bias. So because we'll be having the participants answer questions themselves about their feelings and how they think their online usage is, that could also be a threat to the validity and also the credibility of their responses. Next slide. And then as far as ethical concerns go, we're going to be following the American Psychological Association and FSU Institutional Review Board guidelines. It's a very low risk study. They will be filling out a consent form. There's going to be lots of confidentiality. We're not asking for names and nothing that would identify them. The data will also be presented aggregated. Also, we'll be creating new social media posts for this that will be about like a scientific discovery. So it's going to be very neutral, non-political, and should not cause stress for our participants. And also once the study is over, they will be informed that the posts were created for the purpose of the study and that there's no deception. We're only temporarily withholding our hypotheses and research questions just to additionally protect the validity of the study. Our participants will not be getting paid, but we will greatly appreciate their presence and participation in our study. And then just to conclude, Our analysis uses survey data to assess how credibility indicators influence social networking site users, which will then contribute to research in media psychology, digital news consumption, and misinformation. And then it also lends itself to the media credibility theory, which is an analysis of how digital environments affect traditional credibility dimensions, and also the elaboration likelihood model, which will help identify when Gen Z members rely on those peripheral cues. It also will enable platforms and journalists to refine approaches towards fact checking label effectiveness, because as we talked about earlier, that fatigue is really real, as well as sometimes people think not to trust the labels. It will also help policymakers develop strategies to combat deceptive information on our social media platforms, and also further develop those age-based law policies and educational programs to help create digital safety for all age groups, and also to target certain ones that may need a little bit more help. So that is all for us. These are our references, lots of them. Thank you so much for your time, and have a great day.
Bye.